So, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you right now at this amazing event about the processes and how you can become a master of the processes in your startup. My name is Patrik. I'm here from the Startup Disrupt. And what is actually about Startup Disrupt? So in Startup Disrupt, we are trying to build global marketplace where all the startups can benefit from each other, where they can get inspiration, education, connection to each other. And we are trying to support them on this journey. And it wouldn't be possible for us organize events like this without our partners and sponsors. And for this amazing event, we are having the main partner with Salesforce, the amazing CRM system. And you'll see more about it in the following discussion, probably from the country manager, Dennis. After that, another partners like HubHub, great co-working space, Microsoft for Startups, Tyinternety, CzechInvest, LXVI, and many others. So right now, have a seat and enjoy the all session which we prepared for you. So right now, I would like to pass the word to Jakub Zimola, who will be the moderator for today's discussion.
So thanks everyone for joining us today and for watching us. And we have four great speakers here today. With us is Daniel Sturm, Dennis Tomíšek, Anton Danilov, and Stephen Walker. To just kick off, guys, I would kindly ask you to just give us a short introduction about yourself, your journey, why are you the master of processes, and you can also mention what is sort of your occupation at this point. Okay. So Daniel, would you like to kick off?
Okay, I will start. I'm definitely not the master of processes. As I just said, my inbox now is something about 1,500 messages, so I am not the master. My career was partially in big corporations. I was marketing director of Česká spořitelna, which is the biggest bank in Czech Republic. I was marketing director of Home Credit, Czech Slovak Republic, and plenty of other marketing functions. On the other hand, I was a sponsor of 6-7 startups. I recently 2 years were starting up a company in Indonesia, and I was trying to get the seed money for that across whole Asia. It was big fun. So I can tell you plenty of unhappy stories about startups. So I think that I can teach you a lot how to not to do startups because I learned it hard way.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I think we will have some follow-on questions on that. Dennis?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm actually working at Salesforce as a territory manager or account executive, if you will, which means I'm looking after a Czech market, especially with a focus on startups and SMB, like small and medium businesses. So I don't want to pretend I'm a master of processes either. I don't actually have a founder experience like Daniel, but I'm being lucky, working for such an amazing company as Salesforce. So I get to speak to a whole lot of founders, stakeholders, and I would like to believe that over time I gained some understanding of what are the typical challenges of startups. What are they facing on a daily basis, and I would like to believe that I got some or gained some business acumen to be able to at least guide them and use the knowledge into their favor. So that's me. Yeah, sitting here in Ostrava. Otherwise, I'm based in Dublin, and yeah, looking forward to the session.
Great. Yeah, and it's great to know. Anton, we have Anton from Reich.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Anton. I'm a director of product management at Reich. We've been opening our large center of excellence and big office here in Czech Republic in Prague over a year ago, and I'm also located here. Responsible for scaling of our product to enterprise levels. It's quite a challenge because Rike is essentially a startup that is a success story. And as some of you might hear, recently we've joined the Citrix family, so now we're part of Citrix. And I've been with the company since it's been growing from 200 or 300 employees to over 1,000, and then joining the large corporation. So that's quite a journey, and a lot of the process stories there. But as everybody, I'm not a master of startup I'm not a master of processes. So let's just get that.
All right, great. Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that you are all humble about your experience and what you can do, but I'm sure that you have some great points. And Stephen from Prorector.
Yeah, I'll just cut to the chase. Definitely not a master of processes, but
great.
I am a master of marking all as red. I'm a big believer. If it's important, they'll email again. So that's sort of my first hack that I'll throw out there. I'm from the US. I worked in some larger companies like Capital One and Amazon, but I actually have a design background where I ran an agency for a while before moving into sort of corporate world and then moving back into startups. Since coming to the EU in 2017, I've helped grow consumer mobile app companies as well as B2B. And I help sort of new founders in sort of the seed and Series A range, sort of help think through their product and how to kind of put some product processes into place. I'm currently at Product Board. If you're not familiar with Product Board, we help companies build products that matter, and essentially we're sort of a strategy layer over top of sort of your delivery layer, whether you're working in Jira or something like Azure DevOps.
That's great, and thanks, Stephen. And just to start, really, I think it's good to ask a question, all of you, one general question, and it's really, how would you simply describe what the process means? So we know that we don't have any master here, but it doesn't mean that we don't understand what processes mean, right? So let's just try to describe what the process means. And if you can start with you, Daniel, again.
Yeah, okay. That's good to start because the others will not have the chance to copy it. The simplest explanation of process is that I want to get from point A to point B on the fastest and cheapest line. But this works in corporations. So you are trying to do everything as effective as possible. But in startup, you don't have the processes. You don't know what to do. You need to pivot everything. So you are not looking for the process, how to do the cheapest thing, but you are looking for a process, how to set up the right process. So that's the difference between startup and corporation. And of course, if you not follow the exact steps for startup, you will not be successful. You have to do it very lean. You have to pivot very quickly. You need to understand what the data are telling you. You have to believe that you are doing the right thing, but you need to listen. If you don't listen, you end up in big trouble. So processes are nice, and maybe that's the reason why we are not talking about master of processes, because in the startup, the master of process is the one who is at the end successful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to describe that. Stephen, do you have anything that you would sort of describe in a different way?
No, I think that this is really nailing it, right? Like, I think the big thing that sometimes people forget is taking a step back and really looking at the stage that you're in. So you can't just take a process that works in one company and sort of bootload it into where you're at if you're not sort of the same sort of organization, same size, same setup. And so you have to really look at the fundamentals and pull it apart. But I think Daniel did a great job of defining it.
Great. Dennis, you look like you would like to say something.
Yeah, I would maybe chime in with my kind of personal understanding or definition of what process is, because to me, processes in startup especially is a method of doing things in order to achieve a certain outcome, right? And if you aim to achieve the same outcome repeatably, you may want to think about putting some structure in place so that the method is structured and scalable at the same time. So this is a structure to me. Like, it's not only getting from point A to point B, but making it as repeatable as possible, and making sure that anybody in the organization isn't just doing same thing in their own way, but actually everybody follows a certain steps or a structure to get to the same outcome repeatedly. That's my take. That's my take of this general expression of process. And if I were to kind of describe it in a simple way so that anybody can understand it, I would probably give an example. Like, I'm a salesperson, right? I'm not a founder. I'm not a stakeholder. I'm a salesperson. So to me, the closest example would be actually, a sales process, a typical process that should exist at every organization, right? And if you think about it from a founder's perspective, if you're a founder, you've probably managed to sell your product, several times to a handful of customers already. You know the product inside out. You're the best advocate for the product. You actually, you're able to land a deal, and that's why, because you understand the value of your product, the value that it brings to your customers, and you're able to sell it to the customers, right? And this is art. This is not something that you can just copy or replicate. So how do you turn this art of storytelling and art of selling into a repeatable science? Well, you build a process around it. Only this way you can hire a salesperson or a few dozens, like at Reich or product board, and still be able to replicate process to the salespersons or the salespeople are able to be given the purpose of generating revenue successfully.
Mm-hmm. That's great that you elaborate, I think, on that. Anton, I know that there's been lots of things said. Is there anything that the guys didn't mention that you would like to say as well?
Well, honestly, I think that it's been nailed so far. So being the last is very hard to say in novel. But I do agree with most of the points, and I would say with all of the points, and especially with the arts versus the science thing. It is when you want to scale things, you come to processes. And that's why Daniel said it works in corporations, right? Because you want to scale that to a corporate size, and only then it starts to work. But there's also a reason why processes are impossible within a startup, because you have nothing to operationalize, right? You have nothing to optimize. You have to invent something before you kind of start to build a science on it. So invention,
and before you lose all the money, you have to invent sooner.
Quick enough. Yeah, you have to be really, really quick. It's like how to put people in an uncomfortable situation. Ask them so that they have to come up with something really quick under the gun. And that never works, but that's how startups work, right? So I think that science of scaling things and growing things, that's what processes are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you need to scale it, you probably need a process around it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you don't need a process for everything, right? That would be like one of the golden rules in startup. You don't need a process for everything. You need to know for what you would probably need the process.
That's an interesting point, and I'm jumping off the script a little bit here, but what you mentioned here almost feels like when you just got an idea, you sort of shouldn't focus on processes as much as you do when you are scaling. But do you think that there is something that potential founders who are just thinking about setting up some venture, they should have in mind and really know about when they are starting? An idea I have is like proper CRM. I feel like you need to have a proper CRM even when you are starting, just to test the ideas. Do you think that like that's important? What do you think is important to at least know and have a knowledge of when you are doing startups when it comes to processes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can I go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Don't go ahead. Yeah, as I said, it's not important to have processes for everything, but knowing when to put a process in place, it's not all just punk, right? And when you have to put a process in place, I would say, as a founder, automate the hell out of it. Automate as much as you can. That would be like number one rule, because you can make it nimble. Then you don't have to stick to the process. And you guys already mentioned that it's important to pivot. It's important to innovate. It's important, if you learn by mistakes, you need to experiment on what works and what's not. So if you put a process, you just make sure that it can be innovated too. Processes can be innovated too, right? If there's a better way of doing things, a good process should be easy to capture this new innovative way and just pivot itself. So that would be number one, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we launched the simplest minimum viable product, we usually do it by something what we call mechanical Turk, which is a person who actually is a computer, and you have to give this person some process. You will do this, and this, and you are not programming it because you want to change the process tomorrow for something else. To say the person do that today differently, and we will see the outcome and test the A, B, C, D, and at the end how to do the process properly, and then you can give it to programmers. Okay, this is the process which works. Now do it, and so we can't say that it's not necessary to have the process, but you have to have a process how to change the process.
Yeah, I think to build on that, your original question around the CRM, if you're successful, you're going to throw that CRM away in a year or two. So I wouldn't focus on selecting the perfect CRM. I would focus on like what gets you, the 100 customers that are closed as quickly as possible with like as least amount of friction and overhead. And if you can automate it, that's great. But your CRM could be your notepad until you outgrow that. And so I think it's really about focusing on what gets you that speed and knowing that you're going to throw it away eventually. So not to invest too many cycles early on picking the perfect system.
Mm-hmm. And I would probably add to that is that when you're creating something new, be it a product or a technology or a startup or whatever, you cannot account for it to grow. You cannot plan that it will grow. You cannot plan that it will scale, but you should at least hope. And when you're building things, you have to build it in a way that, okay, we're trying it out now. We cannot invest in building it in the most scalable way, but then what happens if it does? And then if you still lay out the ground or a foundation for future scalability, then that will immensely help you going forward if that works. But definitely, if your MVP works and you know that that's going to be your product, then going forward, you have to think about what happens when it's 100x what it is right now. And obviously, you shouldn't kind of build it all 100x because that's going to be over-engineering. You're going to waste all your resources and stuff like that. But you have to think about it. And if you do, then you kind of subconsciously start to innovate processes into what you're doing.
Dennis, you're nodding your head. Is there any point that you would add from like Salesforce perspective?
I couldn't agree more. I've been employed in corporations where processes just for the sake of processes have been actually bogging down things being done. I've been there, done that. I've never worked at a startup actually, but I like to think of Salesforce as a startup, as a huge startup with a few tens of thousands of employees, with an amazing customers and multi-billion-dollar revenues growing year on year. But the startup-ish culture and the ability to pivot, to innovate, to actually challenge things, how are they done currently and how they could be done. This is, I would say, very much startup-like. So I couldn't agree more to what the guys just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And the presence of CRM in a startup, I wouldn't even argue it's necessary. Yeah, at some stages, yeah, simple spreadsheets can work. I'm not selling CRM to everyone, and I'm not at all selling Salesforce to everyone, because I truly believe that not everyone deserves the number one CRM platform.
Yeah, but sometimes the best CRM is Google Sheet. You're right.
Yeah. As long as it suffices, if it's not a leaky bucket, if you're not losing business, yeah.
This is a good point. And Daniel, you obviously have lots of experience when it comes to business and building companies as well as running large corporates. And it's in numbers, it's 25 years. Do you think that the sort of the approach to processes has changed over the decades? Because
I think that we have simple tools, and the agile approach really helps to understand how to do things. And a few years ago, I think 20 years ago, when everything was done in waterfall and everything was planned ahead, and before you start programming, you needed to have 200 pages, and that's time is luckily over, because usually if you spend 2 years preparing something which nobody wanted. So today you just do very simple thing. You really use a Google Form or a Google Sheet, and you present it to your customers. You do some clickable prototype on Figma, and you do it very quickly. You show it to your customers. They will try it, and they will tell you exactly, this button is nonsense. I don't know what to do with that. So the process is really speeded up, and everything is possible to do in real time, which is very helping. And if you do design sprint, you really can have good results in a week. So it wasn't possible before.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And Stephen, you've been apparently building on the internet 18 years. So do you agree with Daniel, or do you have sort of different point of view?
No, I think the magic of the design sprint, there's obviously some really good marketing behind it, but it's essentially you're giving a team a specific mission that they're laser focused on, and you have a time box, and you have sort of a sequence of activities that you can run at. I think you could take almost anything, and you can create a repeatable process that way, where it's like, as long as you have that alignment on what are you trying to achieve. I really see the big element there is that time box. Like, work fills the time allotted, and you can look at the cathedrals being built in Barcelona, for example, that's been going for hundreds of years, versus what's the 2-week version that we want to ship as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. That you almost started answering the question we have from public. And by the way, anybody who has a question can go to Slido. You can see the link below or on the bottom of the video. And one of the questions we got here is how to focus on one idea, because lots of startup founders have hundreds of ideas how things could go, what they could do with the product, how they could offer the product and everything. What would you recommend them? How to focus when they want to do everything?
Show me one startup that's been successful doing everything.
That's the reason why the weekly prioritization of next sprint is there. So you know the capacity of your team, you know how much work they can do in a week, and of course you have a backlog which is 100 things long, and you have to give your team only the things which they are able to handle. So, and in sprint, you can work only 8 hours. You cannot work more than 40. So that's the way how to prioritize. That's the way how to keep focus on one thing.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that on the backlog thing. And you can apply that to anything, actually, right? It's not necessarily a Scrum team. You can take your business problems, for example, or your business ideas and make a backlog out of those. And then actually the whole thing you have to do is just ask yourself, what is the worst out of those? What is the worst problem out of those you have? And then the answer normally comes out immediately. It's this one. Right? So, and essentially, if you have like 5 business ideas or 10 directions that you can go, and you say that every one of those is a problem. Like, if I don't go this way, I don't get this. If I don't go this way, I don't get that. And like, what's the worst out of those? What's the one thing I have to fix now? That's your priority. That's your focus.
Yeah, I would just probably add to this what just Anton mentioned, that I would think about it from a customer's perspective. As as I'm trying to prioritize, I'm not always able to put that many things on my plate that I would love to. So I'm thinking about my purpose, what brings me to fulfill that purpose. From the customer's perspective, or from the startup or venture perspective, it would be what is the best way of spending my time in order to serve my customers, in order to get closer to the customers. So think about it from the customer's perspective.
Yeah, by the way, here's where it loops back to the processes, because if you have a proper process of building a backlog, it will be about the customer needs, because it will be a proper Scrum process, which would then result in what you just said.
Anton, is that the case for like larger companies, since you sort of have experience with larger companies as well? They have sort of problems that they want to solve?
So what I mean, for a larger company, the problem would be to scale the same approach. And the more you scale, again, the more you build processes around this, right? But at the same time, things like Scrum, for example, don't scale that well if you just build a very formal process around this, because essentially it's not about what you do. It's not about doing the retrospective. It's about doing the why behind the retrospective. And that's the hardest part. So you have to also build a process around kind of having that idea spreading out and having that why spreading out. And that is probably the hardest part, because it's very easy to kind of do the rituals, but it's much harder to do them kind of meaningfully. And that's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, that makes sense. What we have another question here that I find quite interesting is how to break the sort of quote unquote deadlock and demotivation in process and find more motivation. And I guess here it can come from like inner motivation, so as an employee or founder, but also how to motivate your employees as a leader. And since you, Anton, I know you just finished, but you have some experience leadership. So how would you sort of approach, or what would you recommend?
Well, we've been debating around this topic in Rike for quite a while. And my own personal position around this is that, honestly, there are two types of people. Well, it's not two, it's a spectrum. But on one side of the spectrum, there are people who are kind of entrepreneurs, right? So they like to invent, they like to create. Those the art kind of people. And then there's the science kind of people who really like the order and the not the repetition, but the scalability of the things and the process side. And then when you're building a process, you have to rely on or partner with a person who is more scientific around this, who is much more orderly, right? And then it is really hard, because people who are building the business and often leading the teams are kind of like art kind of people. And that is why you can oftentimes meet a very massive backlog of a very successful team. And then the question is, how does that work? So leadership and as a science and as a discipline and building processes is very tightly connected, but they're on the different side of the spectrum. So the question is how to marry those.
Mm-hmm. And do you have an idea how?
Well, every entrepreneur has to partner with a person who likes and loves and lives with the process, right? So who wants to do that for a life. And I honestly believe that this is the only way, because I can give you myself as an example. I'm totally not a process person. I like to establish processes. I like to build them within my team, but I know that a specific kind of mindset is required for that. I mean, I don't know, guys, do you agree with me? Am I making sense here?
Yeah, that there are. I do understand, and I do completely agree that there are two kind of people. One people, they are going to the forest. They bring the wood, and they make big fire. And the second type of people, they like to be around the fire, make it big, and can keep it. But for me, that's not the job for me. Guys, the fire is running, so I'm going to another forest. And you have to combine these two types of people, and then these who are making the processes and keeping the processes, they love it. And to the second thing, you asked how to motivate people, and I always say, if you need to motivate your people, find another people. Because you cannot motivate your people. They are either motivated or dismotivated, but it's not from outside, it's inside. So I hope that I have people who like their work and they are motivated. Sometimes I do something what they don't like, but they are still motivated.
I think there's two things to kind of build upon this. I think one, with the processes, like we often reference lean in this modern tech world, and we should understand where lean came from. Lean came from the Japanese trying to beat the Americans in building automobiles, and they realized that they would never be able to win if they built the same production system. And so they built in a way that anyone on the line could say, hey, something's broken, let's fix this, and they can have sort of that autonomy in their job and to make those adjustments. And so I think building that same thing into your processes, where if the process is bureaucracy, no one wants that, and so you definitely need to be able to raise your hand and make those adjustments within sort of your purview. And then I think the second thing, and this really comes from I think the product that we build, is helping people understand the why. So if you just sort of ship the solution that they need to build and you give them the process, they're usually not very motivated. But if you help them understand the problem and the context, they can develop a lot of internal motivation, in the same way that like a founder has that. Like a founder has deep empathy for a problem because they've spent thousands of hours talking to people about it, and you can kind of recreate that within your team. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't work, you do have to make adjustments to the team.
Mm-hmm. That's actually why I believe that processes are not always necessary in all occasions, because if you've got a motivated employees, or if you want to keep them motivated, and if they are tremendously talented, they're doing a great job, just let them do it, right? You don't have to build a process to limit their abilities or to limit their invention, right? So if you know that there are people in your team, that masses, that need to follow a certain structure because it has to be repeatable, because it has to be, have to be given a purpose, then the process has to be somehow defined and captured and enforced, probably.
Mm-hmm. But would you say then that sort of the processes limit the creativity, or is it the other way around?
Maybe I'm biased because I just recently started to reading a book. It's called Rule of No Rules about Netflix. like at the 30th or 50th page. But this idea is like still resonating in me, and I'm kind of really on board with the idea, right? It's when I look back at where I've been in the different organizations and how I have acted in the different situations, even in my daily job, like in the sales, I do believe that I'm senior enough, and my manager has confidence in me that they don't have to build a structure around myself, build a structure around how am I supposed to work. I do believe that I deliver results. I deliver them within the boundaries. I deliver the results within some authority, but at the same time, I don't have to be controlled all the time. I just have to discuss, get enabled, be coachable. But this comes, this is not a process, or this is not the process per se. There obviously are processes around enablement. There are processes around coaching, like best practices and so on and so forth. But it's not like a limiting process. So I'm thinking, I'm coming from thinking or connecting how things are working at Salesforce, for instance, and what theory teaches us.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to add anything, Stephen?
I think it's really good to separate out operational from creative processes. And like on the creative side, I think if you teach the people principles and methods over exact steps, right, like then you can have that flexibility. But I think looking at lean is a really good example of like, the people that design a new Ferrari, they're not using Agile, right? Like once you've designed the Ferrari, then you break it down into repeatable steps to manufacture it. And so you need to really look at, are you having a creative process or are you having an operational process? And you need to separate those things out to give the people the right level of control.
Correct. Yeah. Design thinking and these sort of things. Yeah, I totally get your point.
But at the same time, we do have this design sprint system, right? And which actually tries to put a process around the creative process, which sounds a little bit controversial, and I'm not sure if it is. I don't know if anybody has experience with that.
That's completely like that. In a startup, you need to find a process how to set up the best process and to satisfy the customer and find something what will be profitable in the long run. So that's exactly what the process in startup do.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask myself, how repeatable do I need the process to be, or the invention process, like the DevOps, the R&D. How repeatable do I need to be? And if I not satisfied with the cadence or with not satisfied with the results I've achieved so far, then probably I should think about how to make the art of the art of selling or the art of inventing repeatable science.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the main mistakes that people make when they're setting up the processes when it comes to the actual implementation? Because I can imagine there's going to be lots of things that can go wrong.
Well, implementing processes in one company just the way they are implemented in the other, or in the book, it doesn't matter. They're not solving a particular problem of a particular company or a particular team right now. They're just maybe trying to replicate it. It might work to a certain extent, but it definitely won't be as effective, for sure. So you have to really kind of be creative in building the process. You have to build a product around that process that you're building, right? So you have to invent it.
Mm-hmm. And I do remember one of the very important lessons of my life when we were having new processes for mortgages in Česká spořitelna. The whole team was working for a very long time, 6 months, around the habits of the organization and setting up the processes to fulfill all the things which we were doing. And after 6 months, we were just not able to do that. So they need to sit down again and say, this is the best way from point A to point B, and they need to draw the right process and to change the company, not to see the company and to write the process. So you always have to find a way how to make the things more effective, and this is very good on Agile, because you say yesterday's process was long 2 days. How to do it that the process will be long only 1 day, and people will find a way how to do that, and they will set up the process, test it, and maybe with 1 day the quality will go down about 3%. 3% is okay or not, and we will see. So this is the thing. We need to find a way how to make people responsible for the process to make it more effective.
Is it also, Daniel, the thing we discussed for now, was it the biggest failure when it comes to sort of trying to set up everything properly, or what was
I have 4 hours. I can talk you. I can tell you about my unsuccessful fuck ups. I told you before we started that when I started lending mobiles in Jakarta, the first batch of 100 phones, people stole from me because I expected that the credit level will be on the same level as in Europe, but it's complete nonsense. It didn't work. So the first batch was lost in a week, and then I had to step back and say, "Oh, come on, I did something wrong," and I had to find a process how to make it better.
Well, just to sort of switch gears, Dennis, do you have any experience, let's say, that you want to support a sort of post-Series A startup with Salesforce, and sort of you look into what they are doing? Do you can you see like any common mistakes that they made during the journey that sort of made it more difficult now to implement everything properly?
Yeah, I mean, a common mistake. It depends on the stage the startup find themselves, right? You mentioned post-Series A, which I consider pretty scaled up startups with a decent funding behind their backs. But in my experience, it's when it comes to processes again, it would be the common mistake would be at the contrary to what Daniel mentioned. Like some of the common mistakes would be reinventing the wheel sometimes, and I guess it's somehow related to the nature of the founders, right, and the entrepreneurs. Because from my experience, at least my personal experience, while talking to dozens of or hundreds of potential customers, and some of them existing customers, Salesforce has been around for 22 years, and we managed to grow to this tremendous size, and we wouldn't be able to do it without our amazing customers like Product Board, like Reich, and all these trailblazers. And I still kind of get it back to the sales processes because these are the closest to me. Yeah. But as the slogan says, our Salesforce puts the businesses and their customers closer together. And sometimes it's there is a best practice in this. We've managed to build in the best practices in the solution so that the startups can take it and leverage what we've already learned from all these product boards in the world, from all these Reichs in the world, from all these amazingly successful businesses that are using Salesforce in a certain way. And we've learned from them, they learned from us. And when it comes to processes, I sometimes feel like the founders or the stakeholders, they don't know what they don't know, and they're trying to figure out themselves, and they are reinventing the wheel. And I know that there is a solution. Salesforce is not a piece of software. It's a solution to a certain problem. So it has to be discussed. It has to be. It's a process, right? It has to be understood properly, and there has to be a solution suggested to a certain given situation of where the customer finds himself.
I think one of to build upon that, especially if you're a startup and you have Salesforce as a CRM or another CRM, one of the easiest things I think you can do as a founder is look at your operating cycle, so your like overarching processes at a high level, and try to separate them. So if you have, a lot of companies, the first thing they do is they look at moving the, sales team off of the calendar year so that, they don't have to do all of the taxes at the same time and close the book of business at Christmas time and things like this. But I think one of the smart things you can do if you're in the B2B space is offset your product cycle and your sales cycle and do it by 6 weeks. And, that way, when it's the middle of the sales cycle, you're delivering at the end of, what is now the quarter for your product team. And so you've got this momentum within that sales cycle versus having everything happening at the same time inside the company. And so I think one of the smartest things you can do is just look at how you can offset the timing so that you're not doing everything at once within a company.
That's an interesting perspective, like separating the things from one another. But for this to achieve that, you actually need to have all the data in one place, right? To have the big picture of the business, so to know what's going on in the product development as well as in sales, to be able to separate it.
I think we make a couple of solutions here for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 3 new questions. Let's go to that.
Yeah, I was just going for that. So let's just start, and we partly already answered this question, but do you think that processes can work the same way in a company with 300 employees as well as 600 employees? And somebody who just asked this question, they say that we've doubled in 2 years. So we probably have some quite promising startup. It's not probably even startup anymore. They are asking this question. Do you have like any unique perspective on that? Something that hasn't been mentioned yet?
Yeah, that's very difficult to keep up with all processes when in 2 years they double, because of course the processes need to be very flexible to be able to keep up with the growth. And when you read the book Freedom Company, they say that when you grew up over some threshold, you should split the company to 2, and it would make your life much easier. So there, of course, if you have, as Dennis said, if you have the company led by why and by values, it's much easier for you to scale the processes. If it's driven by rigid processes, it's almost impossible job, because you need to refresh the processes as the company is growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great answer, Daniel. Do you have sort of different perspective on that? Anybody? Anton, maybe?
Yeah, so I have actually seen growing exactly right through that threshold from 300 to 600, and then going forward to 1,000 and over. And the main thing I remember from these years is that exactly what Daniel said, that processes should be flexible. They should never exist because they exist. And if they have to be changed, they have to be changed in a lean way immediately. And sometimes you have to change process 4 times a year, or even more frequently than that, if you're evolving that fast, right? So, and that's what happened, for example, with our product planning process. We've been growing a lot as a product organization, and our planning processes have been evolving really fast, from really kind of small events for just a dozen people to a large offsite event where it's kind of an internal conference, which has a very different meaning and a very different kind of process behind its creation. And there's been numerous steps behind that, right? So you are involving your processes with the organization, and you just have to kind of review what you see in front of you every time. So at any given period, be it a quarter or a month, maybe even, you just look at it and say, like, does it work for me? Does it work for this organization? Or is that a large organization and it doesn't fit the bill anymore? And then you have to be very, very free to change. So very kind of unrestricted, I would say. So there shouldn't be a restriction to change processes.
Mm-hmm. Great. If there's nothing else you would add, Stephen and Dennis, we have 2 more questions from the public that are a little bit more specific. And this one is a little bit on the other side of the spectrum. Somebody's asking, my team and I are working on the MVP within our startup. Can you please advise the backend sales management programs to make the best start for the eShop? I know it's pretty sort of concrete question. Does anybody have any experience with that? I'm not sure, Daniel, if you would.
Of course, we can talk about Firebase and about all these things, but if I can see all the fuck ups I did, one of the things is that you program too fast before you actually very well know what to do. So sometimes
what your customers want,
what customers want, what is the right process, what is the right product, and so on and so on. So every time when I said, okay, let's program it, it was wrong, because we program it, we spent on it too much time and too much money, and then we recognize, oh, it wasn't good, we need to do it again.
You took it to perfection and no one wanted it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it took a very long time. For example, when we did for Škoda, we did HopIcar, which is application for renting personal cars. And the first app was disaster, because of course we tested plenty of things, but then we said, okay, let's program that. And I do remember the time when I put on the wall all the screens which we want to program. And I said, this is the MVP. And at the end of the programming process, there was half of the screens, and it still worked because we didn't have time. So we needed to put some of them down. And during daily stand-ups, we were thinking, if we put all of these screens out, how the screens are interconnected. So we needed to draw new lines, and it was really messy. So until you know what you should do, this question, what is the best backend, almost never is important. So I don't know in which stage this MVP is, but think more about customers and less about technology. Sometimes Google Sheet is the best choice
for everything. Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. Stephen, you're nodding. Is there anything else you would like to mention, or do you agree with Daniel?
Completely agree. Google Sheets. I built a MVP of an app last summer or spring during quarantine, and the entire database ran off of Excel. So, don't overthink it. Just get it out there and get it in the hands of customers. And if you have scaling problems, this is a really good problem to have. Like, don't worry about what happens the day that you have 10,000 customers. When you have 0 customers, like, get to the day that you have the 10,000 customers and panicking, and like, that's where you want to be instead.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. We also have one question that's not really related to processes, actually, and I intentionally kept it towards the end. But somebody's asking how to convince my colleagues who are nurses that we should try to involve a new technology product in home healthcare. And I'm not too sure if any of you has any sort of meaningful recommendation for that.
This is a great question. This is like product 101, right? So in organizations, people don't want to take risk. And you have to think about these people's motivations, right? Like, they want to get promoted, they want to look good, they want to take care of their families. And like, if you have a risky idea, they don't want to get on board. And so the trick here is to de-risk it, and you create a sort of sample group, and you say like, hey, let's try this in one scenario and see how it goes. And if it's really successful, you scale it up. And like this is like software products 101, hardware releases 101. Start with like 1 per week. And if it goes good and the signals are looking good, go to 2 per week, and go to 4, and go to 8, and just keep growing it until you have a success story that like really gets people on board. But no one wants to get fired for your crazy idea. So you have to really build that trust.
Yeah, there is one rule that success has plenty of parents. So if you are successful, plenty of people will go around and tell you that it was actually their idea. So this is the way forward.
True. Would like to add something, Dennis, as well? See, you're smiling.
Yeah, I mean,
It's pretty specific.
good take on that question. I would say it's like a change management issue, right? If you want to promote something, there are certain rules that you need to follow, like having a pilot group, making it success, lead by example. I'm not a product development specialist, but in a services and Salesforce implementation projects, it's pretty similar. So I couldn't agree more to what Steven just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably add that what Steven just mentioned was absolutely the first step. But also, there's probably a reason why that new technology needs to be kind of introduced. Probably there's this why behind it, right? And maybe this why is not even relevant to nurses particularly, right? So they might not benefit from that. That might be a new process which is based not around the paper, but around the table, for example, which is probably harder to learn. You have to charge it all the way. It's not the same as before, but there's always something good about it. And that's something that that you can use. You can promote it this way as well. You can say that this new technology will dramatically cut down on our cost. It will let us collect the data more effectively. We'll have a better data, and at the end of the day, we'll be a better organization because the health of our people will be in better hands, which will have more information on hand on this tablet. And you will be able to help them faster, which sometimes even saves lives. So that's how you can actually kind of turn it away from being a process, which it is, into something that can save lives. But without something that, without everything that Steven said, that would not work. If it's risky, they will still be against it. So you have to de-risk it and then sell it with a value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, thanks for all your answers and to quite general, but as well as specific questions. And before we move on to the pitch night, or you have some startups doing a pitch too, let me just wrap it up by one last question. And it's really, what you realize today is that it's probably not ideal to call anybody a master of process, but there are always ways to improve, and you guys have, I guess, combined more than 50 years of experience. So if you just gave me like the first step or the only step that's the most important to improve the processes, what would it be?
Set up the goal of the change. If you use your data, the process will never be perfect, because the perfect process is that you get from point A to point B in 0 time for 0 cost. And it's unachievable. So you are just making steps towards that goal. So if you know what's wrong or what you want to improve and you measure it, that's the best way forward. Because without it, you just change something for the sake of changing.
Yeah. Great point. Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, hard to pick something that hasn't been mentioned today. I think we kind of covered the topic. It's a pretty general topic, but hard to think about something just to add. Yeah, I'm good.
That's fine. And you, Steven, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you would like to mention?
I think, yeah, before you make a change to the process, like focus on the inputs to the process. I think a lot of people don't do this. So like if your process is to like create good goals for your business or clarity around, what you're trying to achieve, or, hire somebody, right? Like make sure that what's going into the start of that process is actually quality, because if you start with garbage inputs, you're not going to have a great thing at the end. And so I see a lot of people trying to change the process before they actually try to change the inputs to the process. And I would make sure you look at the inputs first.
Mm-hmm. I would probably summarize what, I mean, maybe repeat what everybody just says. It's about why, right? It's about why does this process even exist? Why do we want to change it? What do we want to achieve? How are we going to measure that? How we're going to understand if we're successful or not? These are the questions that are oftentimes overlooked, because process kind of allows you to do that, right? Or it removes the creativity from the process. It becomes repeatable and scientific, but then it kind of removes the question, right? So why does it exist? So return yourself to that question all the time, and sometimes multiple times even within the same question, like ask 5 whys or something. And I think that this is probably the main thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. These are all wise words. So thanks for that, guys. And let's move to the second part of the night, where we have 2 startups, as far as I know, who will give us a pitch presentation. And then it will be great if you can provide them with some feedback or ask them some questions. It can be related to processes, but it doesn't have to be. So if you have some other questions, it would be great as well. So let me introduce you to Ulash, who is the product manager at Tomorrow's Education. So
hi everyone.
The word is yours.
Hi Jakub. Hi everyone. So I will just go ahead and start sharing my screen actually.
If you can just show us your presentation.
Perfect. Can you see my screen?
We can't.
Not yet. Just a second.
Yeah.
Good now?
Yeah. Right.
So, as Jakub said, I'm from Tomorrow's Education. I'm a product manager. And what we do at Tomorrow's Education is we're trying to teach skills for building a better tomorrow. All of us have been in the education system. I've spent 18 years there. And let's be honest, it feels a bit like this. And it's more designed for teachers rather than students. You just sit around and then somebody's telling you something and then they ask you questions and call them exams. Okay, now we added video conference. It's better, but still, it's just the same thing with videos. And also there are lots of different problems that are coming up. One thing we keep saying is that we have to wash hands because there is COVID-19, but then we don't really see the next wave. That is the economic recession because of COVID-19. And then there is the climate change coming. There's biodiversity problems coming. So is education system really ready to handle all these problems? Or is it more focused on historical, like old problems that have already been solved? Our mission is to educate and empower the change makers of tomorrow, not today. So we want to leverage science and technology that we have and foster the community and have this growth and impact. So our solution is we have a professional master's degree accredited in the US and the EU in sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology. And our courses are a little bit different than a traditional university. We have more skills that people need today and tomorrow rather than more theoretical stuff. They will both learn machine learning, but also responsible leadership. They will have sustainability, but also entrepreneurship. We have a quite experienced founding team and mentors. Our co-founders, Christian and Thomas. Christian is the ex-CTO of N26 and ex-CEO of Vivi. And Thomas is a serial entrepreneur. Also, he has a PhD in entrepreneurship. And he's a lecturer at Vienna University of Economics and Business. And we have amazing mentors, actually, from like C-levels and directors from Get Your Guide, Apple, Plan A, Twitter, Google, many others. And the way we envision this partnership is to have, we have the students, they go to the product, they have this challenges on the product instead of exams, and they go through it themselves. But we also have people from industry who will help them understand things so that they are better connected. They are more real life tasks, more again the problems of tomorrow, so we can enable these change makers. Thank you. I think I'm even shorter than 3 minutes, but
yeah, you could take for time, and I guess it opened quite space for questions as well. I'm sure that there might be some questions on the product and everything. Daniel, would you like to start?
I just have a question. There is plenty of educational sites across the globe. Why this is different? Well, what is the reason why someone should invest in this?
Definitely a good question. How we differentiate ourselves from like more traditional universities, I already said we are trying to be more like focusing on tomorrow. But as you said, there are also a lot of new, like alt MBA, proper MBA, and how we differentiate ourselves from them is also we still want to build a community, and we still want it to be like hubs and everything. But we don't think there needs to be lectures and exams. It should be more like we have sort of self-paced challenges. We have the product, we use the technology, but we still have this community feeling. So it's still like a university, and we still try to make it more personal and try to adjust it more like personal needs. And we try to actually be a university rather than one of these education solutions.
And what was it the go-to-market strategy? Because that's always the worst thing to do. To get it on the market. And as I said, there is plenty of similar products, and they are already on the market. So how to get through the crowd to get some customers?
Yeah, we actually started with our first batch quite soon. The application is closed in 2 days. We started as more like a university master's program. So we have this partnership with VU. Vienna University of Economics and Business.
Okay.
So it is officially a master's degree, and it's like a master's degree. It's 24,000 euros. And we deliver more like a concierge activity. So we say, okay, everything we need, we're there, and we have the mentors for you. We are here. You're in our community. You will get like if you want to ask a question to Christian, our CEO, you will be able to. So it's more like a concierge, like trying to foster this community first. And then our next steps are actually going on like different degrees, having more, maybe more like nano degrees, quite easier, quicker solutions, cheaper degrees. But at the beginning, we start a bit more like higher end, and we want to go more like to the long tail.
Okay, so it will be sold like software as a service for universities.
No. We go to. We go to students directly, so students just apply, and then we have now a partnership, so they still get a university degree. But in the future, we will actually have our own university, and they will just apply and just get in like a non-university, but not like a physical place. Maybe hubs and everything, but not like traditional campuses for lectures and exams.
So to the students, you will go through advertising, or what will be the mean how to get it to them?
Good question. They do go through advertising at the moment, but a lot of them are actually more like personal connections. Still, it's like we post like on LinkedIn, and people are like, "Oh, I really like this guy from your company, so I really want to be part of this." So I think it's still community rather than advertising. We do all like all the advertisement challenges, but I think it's still related to more like community and students telling each other.
Okay.
Rather than like heavy advertisement.
To Daniel's point, the go-to-market is definitely something that you guys are going to want to make sure to nail. And you kind of said this, like you're going to go into all these other degrees. Like I would find the product market fit with that one degree before you go into the other ones, because you'll start putting the gas on the scaling before you've actually nailed sort of what that core value prop is. I'm curious, a lot of the pedigree of a university is that you have a stamp that says you're qualified and you should pay me a lot of money. Have you guys thought about the other side of this market, which is employers recognizing the value of what you're delivering to these students?
Yeah, definitely. We also have a lot of company partners, actually. They want to also enable more entrepreneurs. One company sent us someone who will go to the program and they will go back to their company. So yeah, definitely. We want to, I think it's a great question. And we definitely want to also give this feeling that, okay, this person is qualified for this company. And also we want to be able to partner with companies a bit better than traditional universities do.
Great. Do you have any other questions, Anton? I know that you wanted to say something before.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we have 30 seconds left.
No, you can ignore that because at the end we have only 2 startups to pitch us today. So we have more time.
Okay.
No worries
Okay.
about it. Yeah.
So, I would ask a question about the competition. So obviously the education market is pretty saturated. There's a lot of various offerings and it's very wide, right? But at the same time, you cannot think that all of that is your competition, right? So there's probably a few competitors that you are targeting at. What is that, or who are they?
At the moment, we are seeing like Power MBA, Alt MBA by Set Coding. I think these are more like new modern competitors. There's a few more remote degrees as well. We don't see traditional universities where you have to quit and go or relocate as our competitors, but more for like remote degrees. Power MBA, we differ a little bit because it's only on type forms. So we try to put ourselves in a position where we're not really like traditional degrees, but also trying to be a little bit more like a community. So that's the competitional position we're trying to be at.
Okay. And if you're looking at this as a competitive position, do you have a kind of do you have an exact wording of the problem that you're trying to solve? Because I know and I understand that what you're proposing is kind of providing more opportunities for the people, right? So essentially, it's more of an opportunities business, but still, we can take any opportunity and transform it into a problem. But what is that problem that your product tries to solve?
I mean, at the end of the day, the problem we're trying to solve is the fact that education is not focusing on tomorrow's problems. So we're trying to bring in more 21st century skills to university education. That's the problem solution that we are in total we're trying to solve. But the way we started, we're trying to go with 1 degree. Also getting back to Stefan's point a little bit, we want to go sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology. So we think these 3 together are actually delivering the value that you need tomorrow. So we want to enable change makers this way, rather than teaching them all the, I don't know, in my bachelor's I studied IT and I had classes in chemistry. So trying to just take these redundancies out. Does that answer your question, Anton?
Yeah, it does. It does. So essentially, you're trying to kind of build an education that's more about the future rather than the classic, right? Which teaches you about the past, right?
Exactly. So when you're out of it, you actually have A, a network, B, the skills that you actually will use right after you graduate, rather than learning about lots of things that
Did you conduct any research in terms of the demand for this problem? Does your audience actually have this problem, and do they kind of express this in a way?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Also, the students who signed up, they also have like a quite interesting. I mean, they differ a little bit, but I think the most common persona we have is more trying to say also they don't really need a degree. They say they want to actually get the network, and they don't think they will get it from the traditional degree. They think it's more like just going there, having the label, but they want to have the network and they want to have some certain skills rather than the degree and more like the label that it gives.
Gives opportunities. Yeah, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Anton. Dennis? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Maybe I'm asking something that has been already said, but forgive me. It was there is an echo in your room, so I'm not sure if I understood all the things that you described. But is it correct that thus far you've grown the subscribers base through a word of mouth, and this has been the scale so far? Or yeah,
most of the science students came from our, like, when we post on LinkedIn and somebody posts again, like more like sort of our networks, but we still did lots of advertisement as well. So there are also some that came from advertisement, but that the word of mouth and networking, community feeling was more was a better marketing source for us rather than advertisement.
and so what is the strategy for the long run?
For the long run,
how are you looking at acquiring more subscribers in a larger scale?
Yeah, we are doing a lot of events. So we actually do get lots of people at events, and they are quite engaged. Some of them come to multiple events, but also, yeah, we're also more going on like social media ads and everything, trying to be more targeted. But that will also happen more when we have different degrees. So they will have also different personas. So it will be more targeted advertisement than now. Now it's more like, okay, we're doing something, we're on a mission. Would you like to join? Later on, it will be more needs specific.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at scaling by adding more verticals, basically.
Yeah, more also like dividing. Like now it's like sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology, big degree. We want to get it like technology, computer science, IT, system analysis, entrepreneurship, sustainability. So more like dividing things down and targeting different people rather than getting involved.
And have you been able to measure a retention of your subscriber base?
Well, it's not subscription based. It's more, we have a batch like a university, and we are in the first batch. So we don't know yet.
All right. Gotcha.
We don't know how many of them will graduate. We don't know how many of them will actually refer to other people after they graduate. It's in the first stage.
I see.
Great. So Ulash, thank you for your time and for pitching us today. I'm sure if you guys have any other questions, more specific, maybe you can contact Ulash later on. But for now, we are moving to the second pitch of the night, which is going to come from Ingmar from Hustle. So Ingmar, you can start with your pitch. Hey.
Yes, give me just 1 second.
Sure.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Great.
Perfect. Then let me start. We're Hustle, and we're changing the way students build careers. In the last 4 months, we asked over 100 students what their biggest problems are when it comes to dealing with their career. And to sum it up, in one big problem, it's that currently students are lost. There are so many sources where you can get your career opportunities from that you just have constant fear of missing out. And this word actually describes a whole generation. It's been elected the #1 youth word in Germany. We've managed to get our hands on rare footage of National Geographic filming some students that are trying to enter the world of work currently, and this is what it looks like. So this is why we decided to build Hustle. You can imagine Hustle as LinkedIn, but that's just built for students. So let me show you around. First, we give you a personalized career feed. We crawl directly from companies' career pages, so you don't miss a thing. If you follow a company, you have every single career opportunity of that company inside of your feed. In the beginning, we ask you a couple of questions about your career goals, about your preferences, and you can also upload your CV. And based on these information, we can tailor you a personalized career feed. You can cut through the clutter, so we parse long job descriptions and standardize the information to make it very relevant for you. And the job opportunity or the career opportunities we have on the platform are tailored to students. So we not only have internships and jobs, but we also have events and competitions, which is really important to students. You can keep track of your applications and have full transparency. So whenever you apply to a company that's partnering with us, you can track your current status and see where you're at in the candidate journey. You can also link or connect with career consultants that have an edge. So these are people in your age that have landed the position you want to be in, so they can help you do the same. And finally, you can navigate through career paths with our career pather, which is like Google Maps, but for your career, so you can enter some goals, and we'll show the most typical career path to reach these goals. We don't make money directly on the student side. It's completely free, and we focus on growth there. But we've identified also a problem on the recruiting side, so on the company side, which is that most recruiters are just tired of wasting money on uninterested candidates. And if this pitch was a little longer, then I could show you this recruiting tool that we've built on the company side. But I'll just skip this for now and tell you about a business model. So we have a 3-tier B2B software as a service subscription model, plus an additional commission for successful hires or interns. Currently, we've done one test launch at the UCL, a London university, where we got 1,400 page views. Out of these 1,400 people, 500 signed up. We have about a 1x referral rate. So for every single sign up, we get one friend. We partner with over 20 student societies out of Europe, and we have currently 3 active engagements with Pegasystems, Salesforce, and EY. EY will be the first company to post something on Hustle, which is completely exclusive to Hustle users. So they'll post a career launch. 1 second, because I set myself a timer here. Sorry for that. Now, a little bit about our background. So I come from a marketing perspective. I founded a marketing consultancy 3 years ago and grew that to 10 partners, worked together with companies like WeFox, Steelcase, and Walmart. I studied at the University of St. Gallen. My co-founder, my partner Parham, he studies at the UCL, finishes his bachelor degree here there, and has a lot of experience, a lot on startup ecosystem. He's also been the director at the largest student society in the UK. And then we have Amit, who's the most experienced co-founder out of our team. He has grown tech teams from 1 to 15 people, and in his last startup in Berlin, they raised over 8 million in funding, and he led the technical team there. This is the rest of the team. We also have an advisor, which is Rainer, who brings a lot of experience to the table. He has been ex-head of IT at Allianz and head of IT at Telefonica. He has also been head of global workplace solutions at Allianz. So he brings a lot of experience at the intersection of IT and HR, which is really important to us. Thanks for your attention. And this is one of our first users who's using Hustle and can now enjoy peace of mind and clarity around his career.
Great, thanks, Ingmar, and it's a great way to end the presentation. Flying turtle.
This is great. This is great. I want to give you some unsolicited feedback. So much of your career is about the person that you're working directly with, your manager, your boss, however you want to frame it, and like that's really the greatest accelerator. I would really deeply think about like, you know, this is going to be kind of blasphemous, but F the recruiters. Like the recruiters might be who you think is on the other side of that marketplace, but it's the hiring managers. And showcasing the hiring managers to, you know, the students actually gives them a much more like in your deck, you showed who the team is, right? Like show who the people are that they were working with, like really bring this human side, because there's millions of marketplaces out there. And as a recruiter, hiring manager person, I don't want another ATS. Like, like what I want is something that actually connects me with people that are valuable.
Do you want to address it, Ingmar, somehow, or?
Yeah. So I didn't understand when you referred to the team slide. What did you mean there exactly?
Yeah, you humanized your team, right? You showed photos of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like a logo might get you money, but like the person that you're going to be working with, like this is the most important. Like humanize who at McKinsey you're going to work with.
That's what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. This is actually what we do. So I couldn't show you the whole prototype, but as a student, if you use the mobile app, and if you're a qualified candidate for that position, then you have a section where you can link up directly with people out of the team that you're applying to. So for example, if I'm a recruiter, I can assign someone out of my company, maybe out of the marketing team, to only message students that are qualified for this position, for the marketing position, for example.
But
and then as a student, I can ask them questions. Yeah.
Ingmar, when you showed us the feed,
yeah,
that's what's where the connection comes, and that's really pity that you didn't show the person who is hiring you, who has the offer for you, because that's
okay.
This is social, and you don't want to build up another LinkedIn, and this is, you completely change the perspective. You are actually having people inside who are willing to work, and I am here willing to give these students my work, and the most important part is the human interconnection, that they will know something about me, I will know something about them, and give me the insights, give me why I should hire the students, and I will give you the reason why they should work with me. And if these two things will connect, you will have very deep connection between people, and the whole process will be very easy. But otherwise, I like the idea, because you brought something what is not very common on the market, and to come up with another LinkedIn, nobody needs that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Hi, Ingmar. Nice to meet you. I also think that you're onto something. You are onto something that might be very interesting. How far are you actually with the product development? You showed us some prototype. What is the readiness?
So we have today been accepted on the iOS App Store. So you can look us up and download our app, but we have to create an account for you on the back end. So it's in the beginning, you will be go basically to the second or so onboarding screen, and then we'll ask you for your email. And only if we have created an account for you, we can also test out the app, because we want to still have a closed, more close community in the beginning. Yeah.
Kudos for not programming that right away. That's cool. You didn't waste your time on that. That's really great. And honestly, this is really a great idea, and you have tick all the right boxes. You start with the problem, start with the audience. The audience is renewable, it's sizable, and with adding markets, you can expand and scale. They're really good. One question I'm really interested in is connection to businesses, and this is where the recruiters come in, right? How do you make sure that they don't talk to uninterested people? How is that just based on your scoring, or is there anything else?
No, there's a big problem is inefficiency at the top of the funnel in the recruiting industry. So if you reach out as a recruiter or if you post something, then you have a lot of applications for that position, and you have to do the screening process after that. You receive a lot of applications, and then you have to go through all of them. So we put that before you post your position, so you're able to really target people on our app. So let's say as a company, I have very hard hiring criteria. For example, my candidates need to have at least one relevant internship, some experience at a university abroad, and so on. Then I can input all of these information before and filter out the people that don't match these criteria, and the ones that do, then they're qualified. So I can only receive qualified candidates.
All right, so it's better filtering as well.
Yeah.
I like the idea, because of course when you are asking for somebody on the market and you get 100 CVs, nobody has time for that. So it has to do HR. Then they bring something about 4 people, and I still need to go through that. And this will give us the possibility to connect directly. So I like the idea. And it's always good to kill the middleman.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, that's probably the best positive way to end this evening and the live stream. So first of all, thank you, Ingmar, for spending the time to prepare the presentation and pitch to us. And Daniel, Dennis, Anton, and Stephen, thanks a lot for your insights and your opinions and your recommendations. I'm pretty sure it's going to be useful for people, even though that you are not the masters. I'm sure you have lots of experience and lots of things to talk about. So thanks, and take care, and good night.
Thank you, guys.